Hello, hello. This is Kim Andrews,
And Molly Wade.
and this is Swimming in the Deep End for Deep Healing and Peace.
We're here to have courageous conversations about our journeys so that we can all create lives overflowing with freedom and joy.
So today we have picked a topic about setting boundaries in relationships. So Molly and I have both have people in our lives right now who we believe are struggling with boundaries, and we have struggled with boundaries in the past. And I particularly had issues with that before I started developing a healthy self-worth and self-esteem, and was willing to do just about anything or put up with just about anything to stay in relationship with people. And not only did that get exhausting, but it was not satisfying. My relationships were not on an equal basis. And finally, I just needed to make a change because I was way stressed out.
Yeah.
And really not enjoying or getting much out of some relationships. In fact, I would have been better without the relationships. I would have been far better off by myself.
I hear you.
And so that was not just with romantic relationships, but with friendships. Whether it was, a male friend or a female friend, it didn't matter. Sometimes I was just so happy to have somebody who was there to validate me that I compromised myself in relationships and did not set healthy boundaries, let alone boundaries at all. So I believe there are healthy ones and unhealthy ones. So boundaries, I think, are important for deep healing and peace. I found that once I started setting boundaries, that I was certainly more peaceful. And it also gave me the space to heal from whatever was leading me to be in relationships that had no boundaries and that were not healthy for me.
Yeah.
And so once I healed those things, then at some point I wasn't having toxic relationships anymore. And if something toxic happened, then I was seeing the red flags, paying attention to the red flags. I was dealing with the red flags and moving on in some form or fashion to something healthier, or at possibly to say adios to that particular relationship altogether, because it wasn't possible to have a healthy relationship with that person.
Yeah. I think that's definitely been something I've worked on and continue working on.
Continue to work
I'm
on.
not sure there's ever a level of perfection when it comes to boundaries. And things I've learned, over the years, my boundaries change for sometimes the same person or different people. And depending on my growth, very much dictates the boundaries that I'm going to set and what I'm needing at that moment. So let's get down to what is a boundary for you? What does that mean to you when you hear the word boundary? How would you describe it to somebody? Just a general boundary.
So boundaries for me can look like there's probably a level of sharing I'm willing to do with a particular person. So in the beginning, I might consider somebody a friend and share very personal feelings with them, or talk to them about something happening in another relationship, and I'm doing deep sharing, and then at some point they've either violated my confidence or they've used the information against me, or some way did something to make me not trust them, and to say, oh, this isn't somebody I can trust. I should not share this kind of information with them. And so that may result in me, the first boundary would be not sharing to that level again. And if I was considered myself to be in a close friendship with that person, then we may not be close friends after that. I may set a new boundary and now they are an acquaintance or simply a colleague, somebody I work with, somebody I do business with. And I no longer consider them a friend. So I take some emotional distance back, and I may still be in relationship with them, but it is far different than it was previous to the betrayal or the violation of my confidence, my privacy. And sometimes those things are painful. I mean, I think I've always been surprised when something's been violated in a relationship. Yeah. Because I've trusted them, I may have opened my heart to them, and so it can be painful. And that I found it necessary to grieve the pain, the loss of whatever I thought that relationship was. I might have some real emotion around it, sadness, anger, disappointment, frustration. I might be angry at myself more than I am at them for thinking, well, there might have been some red flags here that I didn't pay attention to. Maybe somebody that I'm friends with shared personal information with me about somebody else, and that's a red flag to me now.
Right.
It means they don't have as much integrity as I thought they did, or they're not.
They did it for them.
Then they'll probably do it for me.
Saying, yeah, your stuff.
That's right.
Right.
And it's just when we start saying, oh, it couldn't happen to me, that you find out, oh, yeah, well, it can. So if they're willing to violate someone else's confidence, and they're probably willing to violate yours. Right. So I have lost some friendships that were very painful to lose. But I tell you what, after setting a boundary and saying, you know what, you're in another category, or I just let the relationship fizzle out, yeah. Or I have a conversation with them and I say, you know what, that wasn't cool, and I didn't appreciate that. Depending on the level of friendship, I may give them a second chance. Right. And that would depend on whether or not they came clean about it. If they said, oh yeah, I messed up, I should not have done that, and I thought they were sincerely, apologizing. Yeah. Then I would say, okay, and I might give them a second chance before sticking them in a different category. But then my radar's up. Yeah. Not that I hold a grudge, but I'm watching for.
You're cautious.
I'm cautious after that, and probably listening and also checking in with myself about how could this have gone wrong? Is there something I missed? Was there a red flag I ignored? Did I participate in gossip with this person, and so they thought it was okay to do that? And do I need to check myself on them, yeah. With them? Am I as good a friend in this instance as I thought I was? Maybe not. Right. Maybe I slipped and missed the mark here. So I do a lot of personal work when something like that happens. And again, depending on the level of friendship, I may do some serious thinking about whether or not that was really a friendship that I have with this person. Are they truly somebody I want to be in friendship with? And if so, what is that based on now? Are they aware of my values, that I do value confidentiality, that I do value that someone can hold the space for me and hold my deepest feelings, my hopes, my dreams, my disappointments closely to their heart? Yeah. And if not, they may be somebody I can go out and have a good time with, but I don't do any deep sharing with them.
Right. I think boundaries for me is, I don't like using the word rules, but setting rules of what I am either willing to do, not willing to do, what I will accept and what I won't accept
Sure.
in different situations. And that is never easy. And it's a constant daily work in progress. As the years go on, it gets a lot easier. I think the biggest thing too for me, as we're just talking kind of what is boundaries, what's it mean to you, and maybe boundaries look different for you. My biggest thing with setting them, and when I struggle to set them, because I want to kind of get into that, like why don't we set boundaries when we need to? For me, the longest time, most of the boundaries I needed to set were what I was in relationships, what I was willing to do and not do, or allow to happen or not happen. And I didn't set boundaries, I won't say soon enough. I didn't set them when I should have, or would have helped me earlier, is because I didn't think that I deserved to set those boundaries. You know, those negative tapes of who am I to say no? Who am I to expect, right? Because sometimes my boundaries would imply an expectation. So if I set this and say, I need you to pay half of whatever, just an example, that's my boundary. I'm willing to pay half. Well, that unspoken expectation is that person's going to pay the other half. And so a lot of that hesitation for me for setting them was, who am I to ask them to do that? Who am I to make them, hold them accountable to pull their weight in a relationship or a friendship that we've agreed upon, whatever, handling something one way or the other and committed to taking care of. So I don't know if anybody out here can relate to that, that's listening to us, the fear of setting them and the repercussions of what if they're not respected. How do you enforce that? We were just talking earlier, you know, about the energy it takes to withhold your boundaries in some cases. Sometimes it's easy. You set it and that person, you're not giving them what they want and they just go on about their life and, well, that was easy. Okay, you know, have a great day. And others are going to push but why? And, you know, go to the nth degree to try to not do that and abide by what you've set. And something I have found out over trial and error is setting and keeping the boundary. Yes, it's work. However, it took way more time and energy to deal with that person or situation without a boundary.
Because that's where drama comes in.
Right.
And chaos in a relationship if you have no boundaries.
Well, it leaves me open to feeling mixed emotions 24/7 when I'm with them. And having a boundary, however, I know what I'm willing to do, not do. I already have that made up in my mind. So while, yes, they may push on that, kids are a great example of that and pushing boundaries, I've already got that made up emotionally. This is my no, this is my boundary. And so while I have to fight to enforce it, that fight is a lot less than the fight of being in constant drama, panic, stress. What am I doing? Okay, it's a different kind of stress. Does that make sense? It's a more organized stress, if there's such a thing, because I've made my mind up.
And I think, for me at least, when I set a boundary, then there is no stress because the only fight there is if the other person doesn't want to abide by it. And then I have a choice to walk away and say, you know what, I don't have these kind of friendships. I just don't do that. And I wish you well, and, you know, I wish you happiness with whatever you do, but I'm out of this relationship. And that's always the possibility when you set boundaries that the other person might go away. And so that's something you got to know up front, which is why I didn't do it in my early days, because I didn't want people to go away. You know, I needed people to validate me. So I didn't set boundaries. because I had a fear of them going away. And now I know, well, if I set a boundary and you go away, I probably haven't lost much.
Yeah.
Or if I have, and there have been times when I've lost some, what I found to be, some of them were long-term friendships, and they were deep friendships. And it was painful when I left. It was kind of like losing a family member because we we were like sisters.
Yeah.
And then something happened, and I think, okay, that's not good. Damn, that hurt.
Yeah.
and I'm done. And I'm done.
Yeah.
And in one particular case, there was no conversation about it. She kind of, she said something that was really hurtful. And I said, okay, now I know I'm out. I'm really out now. So I said, okay, duly noted. And that was the end of that conversation.
Right.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, in some situations, there's no point in having a boundary because it's clear that that just doesn't need to exist anymore, right?
Yeah, because there was no real relationship. You were just kind of
Right.
together doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and trying to know the difference and talking about boundaries too, how boundaries can change over time. What you may have set last year might be different this year in regards to what you're willing to tolerate or your time, your energy, your efforts, what you're willing to, commit to, because that is a boundary setting. Healthy boundaries and commitments and not overdoing yourself. They change. And I've had it where they've even changed with the same person. One year for a season, there was a boundary with someone where it's like, okay, they're great dinner party people and that's it.
Yes.
And before it was a much deeper and they were in closer in that inner circle, but they needed to move out for a while. And I was fortunate that years later, oh, I'm different, they're different. And that boundary could change and form as that relationship formed. And then there's plenty, like you said, just walk out and you're like, there's no discussion, love and light to you. And have a good one.
I bless you on your way.
Right. I'm praying for you. So boundaries can be difficult. And like I said, this is really important to me, really valuing yourself enough to set them. So if you're struggling to set boundaries, do you value yourself enough that you believe you can have those boundaries? And do you value yourself enough that you're okay, like you said, if they do walk away? Or are you needing affirmation from that particular person or situation so much so that you're afraid to set a boundary? And those are relationships we probably don't need if we are concerned that they're going to leave. I know for me, relationships and stuff that I have set boundaries with, even doing it afraid, the ones I wasn't really worried about them walking away per se. Just, again, for me, it goes back to deserving to set them. They didn't end up going away and they respected my boundary and stayed. And the ones that I was afraid were going to leave usually ended up leaving long before I even got a chance to set a boundary because, And how do you set boundaries as you're growing and doing your deep healing? Because not everyone will be growing along the side of you.
Yeah. Things got so much clearer for me when I started to get acquainted with what I valued. And so integrity is high on my list of values. Honesty, which goes hand in hand with integrity. I value peace. I value self-awareness and freedom. I value accountability, being accountable for your actions, such that if I hurt somebody's feelings and I become aware of that, then I say, I'm sorry. I value that relationship. I will go to that person. And I expect that back. And now I know that I hold people accountable for the things I hold myself accountable for.
Yeah.
And once I knew what my values and principles were in life, then I could clearly say to somebody, okay, I have a problem here, and there's a problem with this relationship because I value integrity, and you cheated on me, or
Right.
you violated my confidence, or something like that.
Right.
And so I get clear, and then I can clearly articulate that to them without letting my emotion take over, and I'm just out of control and blubbering information to them. Oh my God, you hurt my feelings, you hurt my feelings. And that may be true, but that doesn't give anybody anything to work on or to say, now I get it.
Yeah.
I get it that this is what I violated. And either say, I'm sorry, or you know what, I don't care, or whatever that
Right,
is. Because sometimes that happens. So I got clear, and that gave me peace. And even if it's, I think you can have peace and still have your feelings hurt because something happened, but I'm peaceful because I'm clear, and there's no conflict there.
Right.
So I don't have to be happy with somebody in order to be peaceful. We can be in a state of some disagreement, but still have some inner peace because I am clear about what needs to happen or not happen, and clear about what I need to do in that particular situation, and clear about, okay, what do they need to show up with, if anything, for me to move forward in this relationship.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. All wrapped into healing. I think peace is a choice and kind of a state of mind that we choose to stay in or not, and that doesn't stop us having emotions and feelings of hurt, pain, anger, grief, sadness, happiness, and all of it. Peace is not, for me, it's not an emotion. It's not something I feel, and maybe some do. Peace is I'm choosing to be in peace, even if I am feeling exhausted and tired, and I can be hurting and still have peace, inner peace where I'm at. Maybe inner pieces or peace externally isn't happening at the moment, and things are a little, chaotic.
But internally, you're good.
I can still choose to have that. And having internal peace for me doesn't automatically equate that I'm happy all the time and joyful and yay. No. Plenty of times where I have felt at peace in the midst of grieving of losing somebody.
Yeah.
And we can bring that even into boundaries. I can be at peace setting a boundary. I may not emotionally feel good about it or happy. I can know and have that reassurance deep down in my core that this is what needs to happen. And my emotions may not line up with that right off the bat. My emotions, I may be feeling upset or nervous, and I can still have a sense of peace
as a state of being
while I'm doing that.
Yeah.
A lot of times my beliefs and my thoughts don't line up with my emotions all the time. I know this, I know that. That doesn't always equate that I feel that all the time.
And because I thinking about one situation when I've left relationships, a romantic relationship, because I needed to leave it because it was unhealthy. And I've cut off the relationship. We've said goodbye, and I'm home feeling lonely, and I'm peaceful because there is no drama going on. I don't have any more conflict with this person. So I am in my emotion, but there's no chaos here. And I have space to vent my emotion, to start to heal from whatever happened, to grieve whatever I have lost or walked away from. And I can sit there and say to myself, this is so much better than what I was going through with that person. So in that case, yes, I've got some sadness. I'm good right now. I am good because I know what this is, and this is what I want, and this is going to take me forward in a positive direction. In fact, it's already a heck of a lot more positive than it was before.
I've realized that too. sometimes I haven't realized beforehand how much healing and relief that some of those boundaries I was so afraid to set would actually bring until I set them. And oh, for me, I wanted some healing in some relationships, or habits and baggage, right, that I've drug into relationships. And it wasn't until I set some boundaries that I actually got the healing I was looking for. It's like running around, insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different results. I'm like, I want to get over this and let that go and handle all this, but I wasn't willing to set the boundary. I was so clouded by what I thought I needed, that validation from them or whatever I was gaining, that I couldn't even see, oh, here's a boundary I need to set it, even though it may hurt or be uncomfortable. As Brene Brown says, uncomfortable only lasts a few seconds, and it passes. It's not forever. I think she has the specific seconds to how long it lasts scientifically, being uncomfortable. And once I said it, it's like, oh, damn, I really did need to set that, because that healing for that specific issue, that was the answer all along. I needed to set a boundary and value myself and stop allowing those things to happen. And I've found the healing. I think a lot of times we want the healing and we don't even realize boundaries that need to happen to have it.
And the personal work that it takes to get there. So we're going to talk more about healing around whatever is within us or something that we're lacking. We'll talk about that in this next session regarding boundaries and how to set ourselves up for deep healing and peace as it relates to relationships with others and relationships with self. So thank you very much for tuning in. Again, this is a part 1 about boundaries. We are going to continue with our July sessions on YouTube. And in August, we're going to move to Patreon. And hopefully some of you will make the move over to Patreon and become a patron for a nominal fee. In the meantime, we are also going to do some short videos weekly and post them on Wednesdays on YouTube. Probably about 5 to 10 minutes of information, maybe about what we've just talked about or other things that are coming up for us during the week that relate to swimming in the deep end for deep healing and peace. So look for those on YouTube. And as it stands now, we're going to do those indefinitely and see if it's something that's helping people. If you have topics that you're interested in us covering, please put those in the comments on YouTube. Or on, if you want to contact us or send us a note, there's a contact form on my website, thecalltopeace.com. And some of you just know how to find me and Molly personally. Text us, call us.
Find our email also in our bio of our YouTube channel, and link to Kim's page called A Peace is there. Our Patreon link is there. It's Kim and Molly SDE@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, topics you'd like to hear. And we are so glad to be doing this journey with you. And
so here's some questions maybe to start asking yourself before we get to session 2. Are you in a relationship now that could use some boundaries? And if so, really get in touch with what's happening in the relationship. Perhaps what value or principle that's important to you that has been violated. Was there just a failure to set boundaries? What is going on now? And what boundary do you think you need to set? How do you think you can move towards having either a more positive relationship with this person, a healthier relationship with this person, or is it time to just say adios amigo to this relationship and move on? So start thinking about that. There's always room for growth in our relationships with people, and especially with ourselves. And then next session, we'll talk about this deep healing and where do these things come from and how can we start healing and finding more peace. So Thank you again for listening. Check us out on Patreon if you just want to look and see. We've posted a couple of things on there. At some point, we'll have additional tiers of membership with added benefits and opportunities so that you can swim in the deep end and get to more peace and freedom in your lives. We appreciate all of you. And if you think there's somebody else who might benefit from these conversations, please send them a link or let them know about it or send them to us.
Awesome. As always, the choice is yours. You can sit on the edge with your toes in the water and make no significant change in your life, or you can swim in the deep end with us and take another step closer to healing and peace, freedom and joy. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Bye.